Bye.
Billy's blood thickens and
No,
slows,
just weird.
reducing his
So,
ability to burn oxygen.
I guess.
His nerve tissue is getting too cold to transmit
So, new
electrical
obsessions.
impulses, causing his heart to
What's
beat
new in
erratically.
your list? I want to know in the comment box or messages.
Right before
Message
Billy's
me
heart
if you're
stops
going.
forever, a pang of consciousness breaks through the ice. Maybe
What?
it wasn't such a good idea to smuggle sides of beef out the back door. And a really bad idea to have gotten the boss's 17-year-old granddaughter pregnant. There's an old Italian proverb that says, revenge is a dish best served cold. Rest in peace, South Philly Billy.
His eyes went white. Like, you can't even see the pupil. He froze to death. You're coming to the class on
When
these
people
guys.
freeze to death, they are often mistaken as victims of sexual assault. The reason? Right before dying, constricted blood vessels dilate, producing a sensation of extreme heat, prompting them to strip down. It's a phenomenon called paradoxical undressing.
Can you imagine having to defrost somebody? My new obsessions, guys, would be anime. Or if you don't know what anime means, it's animation. My favorite Soul Eater. One of my classmates flipped out on me. She's like, "Oh my god, you like Soul Eater!" And I just jumped back like, what the hell? She's like, sorry. And I just used her to get away from a big group of boys who were surrounding me, talking about how nice their pee-pee. I'll use the word pee-pee. And it's like, great, sitting here listening to a bunch of 8th grade and 9th graders talking about how nice their dick is, as they said. No, it was all started by a 9th grader telling his little brother, he just walked up to his little brother and randomly said, "I hope your dick's nice, cause you sure ain't pretty." No, "I hope your dick's pretty, cause you sure ain't." And it's like, did not mean to kill. So I'm like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
New season, new science, new blood. Smite's deadliest warrior is back with a new axe to grind.
Dream on. Want me to give you one of my pictures for you?
Their weapons, strength, and skills to fight opponents. The deadliest warrior, new season, new blood. Check your local listings.
She's obsessed, man. Going through my pictures.
On an all-new TNA Impact, a new
Telling me to take.
superstar has arrived. Stronger, faster, fearless. Ready to ring royalty. Watch the names you
Oh
know.
my gosh.
To know.
Okay, there's this girl, and we talk a little here and there. And I had her on Facebook. She's saying,
Cause of death. Not what you think. If we Back up to the beginning of the story, it's certainly not
Oh
these
my
three
god.
friends thought their day.
She's going through all my pictures, cause like found me to take
have been exploring the reefs by Cabo San
just
Lucas for the last 3 days.
pictures off. Like, how many more pictures do I have on my Facebook of Justin Bieber? Please tell me none.
After an hour at 45
What's
feet, the divers
up?
made their way back to the surface, making sure to come up slowly enough to safely release nitrogen gas stored up in their bloodstream.
Okay, she is on if she's doing it.
Decompression sickness, commonly referred to as the bends, poses a serious threat to anyone who scuba dives. Catalina Island houses the largest hyperbaric chamber in Southern California. Hyperbaric comes from the word hyper, meaning above normal, and baric, meaning of pressure. If a diver is suffering from the bends, he's brought here for treatment. What decompression sickness is, it's normally called the bends. As you go down underwater, breathing air off the scuba cylinder, the air in the tank has about 80% nitrogen. And so the deeper we go and the longer we stay underwater, the more of this nitrogen gets dissolved in the body. As we come up, if the gas isn't released slow enough, that gas could then come out of solution in the form of bubbles. What will happen is you'll have bubbles that could form around the joints and cause pain in the joints. You could have bubbles impinging upon nerves, leading up sometimes to full paralysis. Richard was eager to get back into his new toy, a present he gave himself for getting his certification to fly a twin-engine aircraft. In his excitement, he forgot one of the cardinal rules of diving. Never dive and fly the same day. As soon as the unpressurized plane climbed out and reached its cruising altitude of 12,000 feet, Richard and his friends began to feel the first symptoms of DCS. The higher the altitude, the higher the probability of developing decompression sickness. Probably the worst scenario would be something called a vestibular fit, where bubbles form in the balance mechanism of the ear, and you end up with just severe nausea, severe vertigo, or dizziness.
Perfect every
It's a
time.
really bad idea to fly following a dive, yeah. With Richard at the controls of the plane, but losing control of his mind and body, it was the all-time worst-case scenario. The three men, incapacitated by the bends, could only watch in horror as their plane augured straight into a mountainside.
Ooh. I love that TV show, even though it's horrible. Horrible.
1870, New York City. During construction of the Brooklyn Bridge, workers came down with a mysterious malady known as caisson
Sorry, one of my
disease.
friends signed off.
The workers would come
There's
back
a new
to the
little
surface
thingy on
and double
Facebook.
over in
I
severe
just
pain,
received
leaving
it a
many
little while
crippled,
ago.
and some dead. They were suffering from a newly
Video chat, I
diagnosed
believe it
illness,
is.
the
It's
bends.
United States Special Forces, you've been training for this moment your entire life. Be courageous.
Oh my gosh, she's as pretty as the first time I saw her.
The best. Altitude ready. Go.
Aren't you ever scared out there? Scared of losing me?
You are what gets nailed.
Dreamer. Her laptop's not at her house. I'm crying. No, not yet. I got you. Mommy, she's a butty girl. What do you want, Alicia?
idea what it is, right? I washed it, I folded it, I'm paying zero.
That's it. That's what we're looking for. Perfect fit.
Can't work.
There's 5 times more CSI New York out there.
I think we're looking at a stone cold killer.
You've just got to know where to look for it. A fight. Get 5 times more CSI New York on Spike 5 days a week.
You're gonna want to check this out.
CSI yourself to death.
What the hell are we dealing with? I think we just found our motive.
The island country of Haiti knows a thing or two about death. With a history rich in occult ritual and voodoo practices, death is deeply embedded in Haitian culture. They even turned it into a commodity. One of Haiti's biggest exports are human cadavers for research purposes. But it's on the voodoo scene where Haiti truly garners major death kudos.
This land belongs to me.
These two brothers have squared off over a land dispute. After accusations, insults, and a shove, the man on the ground, James, is thinking about revenge. He seeks out a voodoo witch doctor and arranges a nasty surprise for a brother turned enemy. That white powder seems harmless enough, but it contains a slow-acting poison called tetrodotoxin, or TTX. Tetrodotoxin can be extracted from pufferfish, which in some cultures is considered a delicacy, but with a big risk.
Tetrodotoxin is a nerve toxin that is found in certain fish that are served in Japan. When people eat pufferfish, they sometimes will eat it to get a badge of honor. And the badge of honor is to eat just enough pufferfish to get just enough of the tetrodotoxin poison to cause local poisoning within the mouth. When you eat too much of the pufferfish, or if you eat inappropriate parts of the pufferfish, such as the internal organs, then you can become poisoned with tetrodotoxin.
Just 2 days after quarreling with his angry brother, James was pronounced dead. But when they buried him, he was paralyzed in a zombie-like state, still conscious yet unable to move or scream. He could only watch as he was buried alive.
If you have severe enough poisoning, you need to get low blood pressures, abnormal heart rhythms, and then paralysis that will start from the lower parts of your body and extend toward the upper parts of your body.
Lordy.
After his burial, James's casket was dug up by grave
I'm
robbers.
so sick.
When the robbers opened the casket, they were faced with the horrific sight of James, who spent the last minutes of his life trying to claw his way out of the casket until his fingers were worn down to the bone.
The coffin.
The man flapping his arms like a bird is Dolph Schmidt, a German librarian with a serious fetish for fish.
Fish.
Dolph longed to be as close to fish as possible, to swim like them, and to swim with them. To fulfill his dream, this amateur ichthyologist went so far as to create his own fish suit. He took an old waterbed, cut it up, and glued it into something he called the merman. Dolph couldn't wait to take it on its maiden voyage. At a nearby lake, he climbed into his fish suit and headed down to the water. But it was slow going, and he quickly started to overheat.
That's bright.
We produce heat internally, and we dissipate that heat to the environment. All cells are metabolically active.
Did you know
and as
cells are
energy
like
is produced,
gooey,
heat is dissipated.
icky thingy?
The human body possesses
I
millions of sweat glands located just beneath the skin. When body temperature rises, sweat begins to form in these glands and is secreted to the surface. As the sweat evaporates, heat is dissipated and cools off the body.
The example of that man who put that waterbed material on him, those water molecules could not penetrate. He put a microclimate next to his skin. He had a double whammy. He basically couldn't lose heat by sweating, and he couldn't lose heat by